The End so far is Slipknot's 7th studio album. This is their final album with Roadrunner Records, which is the record label they've been with ever since their first debut album back in '99, hence the title, The End so far. This album has 12 tracks here. It is 58 minutes long, and it was my most anticipated album for the rest of the year. Of course, Slipknot is one of my favorite bands of all time. Earlier this year, they were my first ever rock or metal concert in Toronto, and it was phenomenal. One of the best nights of my life. I couldn't speak properly for like 3 or 4 days after. I had such a blast. I love them. I really enjoy all their albums. Of course, I prefer some over some of the other ones, but I do own some of them on vinyl as well. I own All Hope Is Gone in Volume 3. Volume 3 might just be my favorite, so when I heard that this album was going to be the closest to Volume 3, that really got me excited, and I have a lot to say about this album. I think this video will probably be really long. Of course, I will go into all the songs in depth later on in the review, but for this part, I'm just going to talk about the album overall. In my opinion, this is by far the best from the J era, so the Gray Chapter, We Are Not Your Kind, and The End so far. This is my favorite one of them all. I need to go back and listen to every single album before I rank them, which will come in a few days, probably by about Monday. I'll have it Monday or Tuesday. I'll probably have that ranking up. But I really like all those albums, and I was listening to We Are Not Your Kind earlier today to really get a sense for it. I forgot how good that one is, but this one is even better. This album has no skips for me. Now, one thing I do want to address is that this is not just a fully headbanging, hard riffs, badass drums album. I mean, all that stuff is there, but it isn't in every single song, and I feel like people aren't appreciating that. I just quickly read through the comments of their Instagram post before making this video to see if I was right, and I wrote this down earlier because I have a bunch of notes here for all the songs. It's how I remember it all after one listen. But a lot of people are saying, this sounds like Stone Sour, this isn't that good, where's all the riffs? And it's like, this album has a lot of deep and emotional meanings. I think that's my favorite thing about it, is that there are so many songs here, certain ones in particular, that really dive into some very personal themes, I would say, personal messages, and even some of the big ones like the Dying song. I mean, look at the chorus, look at the lyrics in the chorus there. That's intense, and I really liked all the singles here, so that also really amped up my hype for this album. And I think the balance between the heavy riffing, screaming songs is great, with the slower, more clean singing, of course, and just powerful songs. And even in those songs, you'll still have heavy drumming from Jay, sometimes even palm muted chugging, and lots of riffs and stuff like that. This is more so, I would say, kind of a rhythm section album, if that makes sense. There isn't that many super insanely memorable riffs like Psychosocial before, like stuff like that. Like, yes, there are definitely some here, and I love them, but it's not like boom, 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 I know what all these are, like right away I'm gonna go learn the by ear, like kind of stuff like that. The guitar really takes a backseat here, and even as a guitarist, I didn't mind because it gave the other people time to shine. One thing that is I've always had an issue with on so many albums in rock or metal at all is the mixing of a bass guitar. Some albums, I mean, some are joked about more than others, like Injustice for All, where the bass doesn't seem like it's even there, but this album does such a phenomenal job at mixing, and I just thought that everything was balanced so well. Typically with this album, the bass and drums enter at the same time for a lot of the songs, so it is very clear a lot of the time they will enter before the guitar, and I think that V-Man did a fantastic job. There's some songs, like again in the Dying song, where he has this random little fill in between. I think it's right in the middle part, and even towards the end, like they put some effects on the bass, and I thought it was really great, but that isn't me saying the guitar isn't right. Of course, Jim and Mick are fantastic here, and they do have a few times where they have little like guitar, I wouldn't say guitar duels, but they share their solos as always. It's more so in the second half of the album, and of course the heavy drop tuning, drop B, drop A riffs are here, and they are awesome. I'm just saying they aren't always front seat only, which I appreciate, because so many people will go into this album just expecting another like stuff like that, which I will love every single time I hear it, and I will never have an issue with stuff like that. But it's nice to change it up, especially when you have 58 minutes of it with 12 songs. Of course, you got to do something different. So that's my little rant on that. I love that. But for me, there are two MVPs of this album. You guys can probably already guess one of them, but the other one, because you guys already know what the one is Jay Weinberg. Holy shit. He is one of the best drummers of all time. And I have zero issue saying that. Of course, Joey Jordison is quite possibly the best metal drummer of all time, but Jay deserves that number 2 or 3 spot. I mean, he is honestly just as good as Joey when it comes to the studio albums, and he is phenomenal live as well. I know because I've seen him. I didn't get to see Joey, unfortunately, and so many people will always make the comparison, but I mean, there was no better person they could have found to fit his shoes. And I know it's been so long, but it is still important to mention because so many fans will bring it up. Oh, he's just another Joey. No, he has a very distinct style. And here I really felt it come forth more. It really presented itself in like the brighter, in the spotlight. I think that's the best way to describe it. The drum beats are already iconic, I feel like. And obviously it's not like, oh, I know what this is right away. But when I listen to it, I'm like, this is just classic heavy metal writing. But also there's just so many times where the breakdowns, it all depends on the drums. Everything like that, the drum fills are amazing. Of course, it feels like speed metal a lot of the time, and he slows it down, and the actual sound and recording of the drums is very tight. I really noticed that on the opening track, Adderall here. I noticed that the kick drum, or both of them, I should say, are very, very tight, and I really liked it because it gave the sense that there were 9 people here, because obviously the band is full of 9 people, and they have at least 3 percussionists. They have Jay, they have Clown, and they have Tortilla Man, and they all have to be here, sometimes with a keg, which of course I loved, and sometimes with like an army kind of snare drum sound, but I just really loved it. I thought the mix also of all the percussion is great here as well. Sid has so many times where he shines. Same with Craig. There is some more key and piano stuff towards the end, which I thought was great. And of course, there has been one person that I have not talked about yet. The other MVP is, of course, Corey motherfucking Taylor, one of my favorite people on this earth. If I ever get to meet this man one day, there will be nothing that tops it. Sorry, not sorry to my future children, but his vocals, I know that he went back in and re-recorded a lot of them because he wasn't happy with them, and he perfected them. This is some of the best he's ever sounded. I think his voice is, obviously it's not possible to say like, oh, they were in their prime, oh, they're in their prime again, but his vocals are just that good. He shows off his range again later on in this album, and one thing I have found with certain Slipknot albums, I won't say which ones, I'll talk about that later in that ranking video, but typically they're front loaded, and what that means is that the front half of the album is considerably better than the second half. Not saying I don't like the second half of them, but a lot of like the biggest songs are always on the first half. But here I also thought it was perfectly balanced when it comes to the quality of the songs. Again, as I said, I don't have any skips here, but Corey really found a specific sound for his scream, and I know it kind of changed a lot back in the early days of Slipknot and Stone Sour and stuff, depending on what was happening in his life, but he's found a very specific sound. I love it. Of course, there's lots of the kind of sound. I can't obviously do it, but that starts off a lot of the songs, which I've come to expect, and I love it. And the way he switches into the clean singing is great, and there are a lot of songs where there are no screaming on it, and if it is, it's very rare, and I love that. People who aren't fans of Stone Sour maybe won't love that as much. I'm a massive Stone Sour fan, and I'm also just a Corey Taylor fan for his solo music and him as a person, so all that comes together really well. Obviously, people will draw comparisons to Stone Sour if they hear Corey sing cleanly, but think about Volume 3 and stuff like that. There's acoustic songs on that album, okay? So that's why I really liked it here, and I also think it was really well put together when it comes to the track list, which is something that is very difficult for a lot of bands. It's like, oh, why is this here? Why is this here? No, they really balance it between all the songs here, even if there is one that's like perfectly clean and stuff like that. Typically, it'll be followed by an extremely heavy song, so it kind of throws you for a loop sometimes. There are actually some surprises when it comes to just the massive drum sound or the massive guitar sound, which, I mean, it feels like there's a wall of guitars. So I love that, of course. I think the end so far is phenomenal, and now I want to get into every single track, specifically Let's do this. The album opener is ADDERALL, which features a tight kick drum and clean vocals which start off this album. There's some great mixing here because the bass is extremely present and somehow the drumming is subtle. It's a very unexpected opening, but a very pleasant one for me. The dying song Time to Sing feels like an instant classic Slipknot track by following their classic single formula, but that isn't an issue for me. I absolutely love this song, the riffs, the vocals, the lyrics, especially the chorus, the drumming, the bass, especially that one middle fill I talked about earlier, the DJ tracks, and everything. The CHAPLETOWN rag is special because it was the first Slipknot single I got to anticipate as a fan. Seeing it live also really boosted my love for it. The chorus is so heavy and it's clear on its message about social media. I love it. Yen is one of my favorite Slipknot songs of all time. The atmosphere here is perfectly creepy, and it is also met with Corey's haunting vocals. The mix is once again top notch. The drums and bass are so crisp here, and the crescendo throughout is perfect. I fell in love with this song the first time I heard it, and that has not changed since. Hive Mind opens with a creepy carnival mix that is cut through by a heavy riff backed up by some quick double bass on the drums. Of course, it has a classic Corey scream, but we also get some classic keg beating in here too. The build up to the chorus is insane. It holds out for such a long time, and right when it starts to be too much, boom, we're there. The ending half is very emotional in the lyrics too, which I really appreciate about this album. Warranty kicks off with an insanely heavy riff that sounds like a breakdown riff. It's a very heavy groove metal type song with a lot of rest in the music to help build the power. This album has a lot of teamwork with the vocals, and I love that. It also has a wah guitar break, so how can I not love that? Medicine for the Dead not only has the coolest song title on this album, but also has this eerie sense with the song opening with what sounds like a film camera reel going and some weird sound effects. I love this riff. I also have to go learn this tomorrow. This is another song that features clean vocals at first, which I think is so well done because it's so hard to balance those. This song really is one of the best of the album and probably one of the best from the JA era overall. Acidic has a very spooky record scratching opening accompanied by some creepy keys. Suddenly, the entire band comes storming in and it really took me by surprise. It all falls out quickly and leaves Corey and V-Man alone to carry it through to the pre-chorus. The lead guitar work has a very specific sound on this album, and it's toyed with even more here. The chorus, just like most of the other songs, presents such a fascinating idea. Also, the sound of the drums is so deep. I love the line, "I'm living in a dead man's shoes." HEIRLOOM, or however I say that, kicks off, no pun intended, with a quick drum intro which is filled up by fast riffs and record scratches once again from SADE. Corey comes in with some rough but clean vocals that fit perfectly over top. Most of these songs have such important and emotional meanings, and this one might be the most clear. Also, we have our first longer guitar solo here, which is full of quick picking and lots of pinch harmonics. It sounds like a dual effort between Jim and Mick, which makes it even better. H377, or however I say that, starts off with a marching drum beat and then a crowd chant that really sets the stage here. Corey's rapping is back, which that blew me away, and it's the best it's been in quite a while. He finds a perfect blend of his clean and screaming voice here too, which makes it even more impressive. The quick riffing adds to the intensity and speed of the song. I love the line about the Reaper as well. It's a nice change up for the album while still keeping the same vibe as the rest of it. The SADE features a clean transition from the last track, and we get more ambient noise to begin this one. The bass and drums enter at the same time a lot here, but I love that because they're so distinct. This album has a lot more clean singing than I expected, but I'm all for it. Corey really flexes his range at the end of each phrase here. I know a lot of the metal elitists will hate on that, but we also have some palm muting chugs, so shut up. The solo trading near the end fits so well because it feels like we've been building up to these grand solos, so we have a great mix of the alternate picking ones, but also some whammy bar fun. Finale opens with a slow-picked intro and some piano. This is the most similar to Volume 3 when it comes to albums, and luckily that is probably my favorite album for them, that one or Iowa of course. The orchestrated backing helps add to the grand and emotional feeling of this bittersweet album. Corey's vocals are at their best once again, and the lyrics will make you tear up. The repetitive nature of this chorus helps put us into Corey's perspective. Even when you expect screams, they hold off and somehow continue to build up the song, and it's this massive feeling by the end. And by ending it off with choir vocals, it also feels like we're taking a subtle trip back in time with their other albums, and then having keys and bass finish it off perfectly cools off this album. I like it here. Slipknot's The End so far is full of rich emotions, powerful lyrics, and heavy backing music. Jay and Corey are the stars of this album, but everyone has their time to shine, whether that's in a bass fill, a quick guitar solo, a keyboard part, a keg hit, or a piano melody. It fits. The mix is phenomenal here, and I can say with full confidence that this is one of their best albums of all time. I'm going to give The End so far a 5 out of 5. I was very excited for this album. As you could tell, I was very worried that it wouldn't live up to my very high expectations, and somehow it preceded it. Very rarely nowadays do we get albums, or I mean really in general, but especially now, do we get albums that have every single song that is just so good, and this album proves that Slipknot still has it. If you have a chance to see them live, I highly recommend it. I didn't make a video on it earlier, but it was one of the best nights of my life. Everyone in Slipknot, everyone behind this album, thank you so much for making this. I will be playing this on repeat over and over again. I will get the vinyl as soon as I can. I think this album really, when it comes to what it's trying to capture, is perfect. I love the mix between everything, but let me know your thoughts on it down below. Where does it rank amongst the other albums for you? That's something that I'm really interested in. As I said, I will have a ranking of all their albums up on the channel very soon, probably in a few days. Thank you all for watching. I will see you guys next time. Over and out.